Movement. It may just be the most overrated skill in tennis. Now, before we hear the audible gasp, hear us out. In this sport, everyone loves to glorify elite movement, and for good reason. Commentators obsess over it, coaches preach it, fans romanticize it. Footwork is the name of the game. And it does make sense. If you can run, recover, slide, defend, and stay balanced, you can win a whole lot of points without having major weapons. But that's exactly the problem. In today's video, we want to break down a tennis paradox that we don't see a lot of people talk about. How being so good at movement can actually ruin your career. And if you're still watching, you're officially part of the Hot Take Tennis Elite already. So do the usual. Like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which player you think is the biggest victim of the quote-unquote movement curse. Think back to your earliest tennis experiences, the lessons, if you're not a player, maybe watching videos online or something like that. And think about what movement actually gives you as a player. If you move like prime Monfils, for example, you can get to balls nobody else can touch. If you move like players like Schwartzman, you can extend rallies, dig out impossible defense, and make elite attackers panic. Movement lets you survive, it lets you extend, and it lets you frustrate opponents for sure. But movement also does something more subtle, something that we think is potentially more dangerous, especially at those elite levels. Movement lets you avoid developing actual weapons. Think about it. Why take a risk on your serve when you know you can potentially grind out a break later? Why go for a forehand winner when you can extend the rally 5 more balls until the other guy collapses? Why change your game when the one you have gets you to the 3rd round of every slam almost by default? Movement makes tennis feel safe, and safety is the enemy of development and evolution. Think about it. When a player knows they can track down everything, when every corner of the court feels covered, when every opponent feels like they're hitting into a wall, the player with the movement specialty naturally gravitates towards defense. And it works sometimes, for the most part, but this is where that curse begins. Players who aren't great movers are forced early in their career to develop big serves, big forehands, aggressive instincts because they have to. They don't have the physical luxury of running everything down. But if you move like Monfils, if you defend like Schwartzman, you get rewarded for staying neutral. You get rewarded a lot of the time for grinding. And you get rewarded for letting the other guy implode, so to speak. You're trained by success to be passive. And unfortunately, passive players have a ceiling. We've seen it time and time again. Let's talk about Diego Schwartzman, probably one of the poster childs for this entire concept. Diego is one of the best pound-for-pound movers in the history of tennis, hands down. Lightning fast, endless stamina, absurd court coverage, slides perfectly, recovers incredibly well, and his ability to turn defense into extended rallies is truly elite. Just take a look at some of his points on clay. And for a time, it brought him a ton of success. Top 10 in the world, Roland Garros semifinal, wins over players like Thiem, Cilic, Zverev, and more. But Schwartzman's movement also masked his weaknesses for years. He never needed to overpower anyone. He never needed a big serve, which in his defense was almost impossible with his size. He never had to build a real offensive identity. Why? Because his movement let him get away with waiting for opponents to make mistakes. And against the top 50, top 100, it works beautifully. But against the top 10, it falls apart almost immediately. Once he started playing the monsters of the modern game, guys who can hit through him no matter how fast he moves, his strategy collapsed. He couldn't shorten points, he couldn't apply pressure, he couldn't hit his way out of trouble. The movement that made him special also made him dependent on that exact movement as his only true weapon. And when that weapon wasn't enough, unfortunately, there's nothing left. And Now let's talk about the other side of the curse, the Gael Monfils side. Monfils is spectacular, but he's also a tragic tennis figure. The guy has everything you want in a modern athlete. Insane movement, elite athleticism, the flexibility of a gymnast, the balance of a well-tuned cat, the balance of a fine-tuned cat, power when he wants it, charisma, a big serve, a massive forehand, but Monfils fell victim to the same curse that Diego Schwartzman fell into. His movement made him so comfortable playing a lot of the time low percentage, highlight reel defense that he never fully committed to becoming an aggressive player. He can outlast the world. Maybe not so much now as he gets later into his career, but especially as a young player. He could turn a broken position into a winning point. He could play 10 feet behind the baseline and still get back into rallies, but he couldn't, or maybe more so wouldn't, consistently step inside the court. He wouldn't take the ball early. He wouldn't flatten out his forehand. He wouldn't fully weaponize his offense. And most of it's because he really didn't have to. His movement bailed him out for about a decade. And while Monfils has still had an amazing career, top 10, slam semis, millions of fans, one of the most loved characters on the ATP Tour, everyone knows, and we don't think this is that controversial, but everyone believes he could have been better. If maybe he hadn't leaned so hard into his defensive gifts. And these are just two players out of many. The curse of moving well, it's not just a Schwartzman or Monfils thing. It's a pattern. Movement is a crutch. A comfortable one, a reliable one, but a crutch nonetheless. Because being an elite mover delays the development of offense, which is ultimately what wins majors. Even Nadal, one of the greatest movers ever, didn't rely on movement. He paired movement with his insane topspin, his massive forehand, his elite court positioning, angles play, relentless aggression, and constant improvement. Nadal did move incredibly well, probably the best on clay of all time, but he didn't depend on that. That's the difference. Now, to be clear, movement is not the enemy. It's still a gift. It's what allows players to survive long rallies, stay in matches, and compete at the highest level. The issue is only when movement becomes your entire identity as a player. When you become a runner and not a hitter. A defender and not an aggressor. The curse kicks in when movement stops being a tool and starts being a strategy. Because movement alone rarely beats the elite. Take a look at Djokovic. His movement is elite. People comment on it all the time, but he also has world-class offense and takes balls on the rise better than anybody. Alcaraz moves brilliantly, but he takes the ball early and crushes winners, especially on the forehand side. Again, Sinner moves well, but nobody can dispute his firepower. And Medvedev may even fall into the category of relying too much on his movement as well. At 6'6", he should have a more offensive game, and we even saw him trying to adapt a little bit more this year, 2025 season, to win more matches, as he even realized he can't keep playing that retrieving style. That's the difference between winning tournaments and winning hearts. And for players like Schwartzman, the curse is only amplified. Shorter players especially have to move extremely well just to survive on the tour. Movement is essentially the only way to compensate for weaker serves, shorter reach, less free power, less margin when absorbing pace, so on and so forth. So they lean into the thing they're best at, which is their legs. And makes sense. But again, it only raises the ceiling so far. Schwartzman was good enough to beat almost anyone on the right day, but not consistently, not deep into slams, and not against elite firepower. And when his movement taps out, well, it's kind of why his decline was so steep, and another reason why elite movement players don't age that well. The modern game just has zero patience for one-dimensional defense. The players are bigger, the rackets are stronger, the forehands are heavier, the serve and forehand combos are deadlier, the athletes are fitter, and the margins are tiny. At this point in tennis, defense alone is not enough anymore. Movement alone is not enough anymore. You need weapons. You need a forehand that scares people. You need a serve that earns free points. You need offense, period. Because modern tennis rewards proactive play, not reactive survival. And this is why we think the curse of movement is so dangerous today. Players who rely on movement eventually get swallowed alive. And don't get us wrong, movement is probably the most beautiful part of the game. It's artistry, heart, and physical expression of grit and determination. But it's also what holds some players back from greatness, and it becomes a comfort zone. You can't run your way to greatness. Not anymore. Movement might win you points, and defense might win you matches, but offense is what wins you eras. See you next time.